Okay, so basically what I want to do with everyone today is just give you an idea of the changes we've made in Veculim, starting off with setting your 15% VAT code. Right, so according to the email that we sent you, we did mention that there's two possibilities for you. You can either go and use your 14% VAT code and make that the default VAT code, or you can keep the 14% one and add a separate VAT code for the 15%. So let me just go and show you what that would look like then. So you go to the setup tab at the top and click on the VAT codes icon. This will open up this little VAT codes window for you. So Jeff is going to do a new build and release for us over the weekend. So if you guys can update on Tuesday morning, that would be perfect. When you do update, you can start off by going to the VAT codes window here. You will then see that the 15% VAT code will already be there for you. Okay, this date, this is my demo data set, so this is now saying the 27th of March, so I can show you how everything's going to work, but your date, effective date for the 15% will most probably be the 1st of April. Okay, if you are making use of the 14% and the 15%, keep the 14% there, and we suggest that you just make the disabled date at the end of April, so that you can still switch between the two. You can use the 14% if necessary, but you can also use the 15%, which Veculim will then default to from the 1st of April, as this will be your effective date year. If the VAT code here on the left-hand side, for example, we have a 15 in there, if that is not the same as your pastel VAT code, you have the option to go and change that. Right, so you double-click in the column, and you'll see that it enables you to edit that code. If the VAT code in pastel is, let's say, number 12, you can enter 12 there. Okay, and let's just make sure that the pastel VAT code that you're using is the same as the VAT code on Veculim, because that's what it's going to use when you export your data as well. Dion, you can unmute yourself there if you want to ask me anything, because I don't seem to be able to unmute you.
And now, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay.
Sorry, let me just move that window for us. Okay, so you're welcome to ask me something.
No, I'm good. I'm good so far. Have you made a choice to keep it as the default as 14, or is it better to go to make a separate code 15?
What we sorry, you can continue.
That's fine. You can go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so what we would suggest is that you create a separate code for the 15%, and the reason for this is because specifically of the grace period as well. So if you're only using the 14% and that's your default, if anything happens, like for instance, there's an order that was created at 14%, but the supplier is now sending the order to you. So in other words, you're going to GRV it with the 15% on the invoice, and you only have the 14% default, then that's not going to work out. So there's certain scenarios where we would suggest that you use both in order for you to work with the 14% and the 15% in the different scenarios that you're going to encounter.
Okay, so that's I'll make it. Yeah, no, that's fine. I understood. I'll make a code for 15. I do have a code for 15, and it's blank at the moment.
Okay, perfect. That's 100%. I'm just going to change mine back to 15. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's continue from here. Once you've set your VAT code and you have your effective dates, which will be your start date for the 15% as the 1st of April, we can now continue. So I'm going to close this window. And let's start at the quotes section. So I'm going to run through a few different areas in Veculim with you. If I'm done with the quotes, I will open the pane up for you for questions. Then you can ask me something before we move on to the next area. So if you go to the work tab and you click on quotes, Right, what we've done here, obviously all new transactions, so whether it's quotes or invoicing or orders or whatever, all the new transactions that you're going to do will be at the 15%. All right. If, however, for instance, you have a finalized quote, I'm just going to use this one in my demo data. So if you have a finalized quote that was done before you're changing over to the 15%. So in other words, the quote was done with the 14% VAT. All right, but it was never created into a job at that stage. And you need to go back and either make a change on this quote or you want to approve that quote. Veculim will bring up a message for you stating that this quote was done with a 14%, but you can either keep it at 14% or change it to the 15%. That's up to you. Please keep in mind the grace period, which is only up until I think the 21st of April. So you can still carry that quote through as long as you're sure that it's going to be done by the 21st of April and you can invoice it at the 14%. Okay, anything after that needs to move over to the 15%. So if I can just show you that message, I'm going to highlight that specific quote and I click on change. You will see that Veculim brings up this message for you. Okay, so it's asking you, would you like to change it to the new default VAT percentage, which will be your 15%, or do you want to keep it at the previous percentage, which is then your 14%? All right, so changing it will take it to 15, keeping it will keep it at 14, just so everybody understands that. If you then say change, if I click on change it, it will open up that quote for me. If you take a look at the analysis window, the little tab here, you'll see that it's now 15% on the quote. Okay, you can then make any changes you wish to make, and it's moving this quote over to using the 15% VAT code. Okay, I'm just going to say cancel there. If you're creating a new quote, I'm going to click on create for us there, and you go to that analysis tab, you'll see because I've now entered my effective date for the 15% as of the 27th of March, which was yesterday, mine is already set to 15%. So what I'm trying to demonstrate to you is as of the 1st of April, when your effective date is for the 15%, all your new quotations will be already defaulting to 15% VAT code. If everybody understands that correctly. Does anybody want to ask any questions regarding the quotes? You can unmute yourself as well if you want to ask me anything. All right, I'm going to move on then. So if the quotes is handled then, we move over to the orders. We're skipping the job card section because obviously you are taking your quotation and creating a job card, so there won't be any VAT changes really on the job card stage. Right, so we're going to close this one. If I go to purchasing and I click on orders, all right, so obviously all the orders that you have previously created at the 14%. Now let's say the order is only arriving on the 2nd or 3rd of April. So in other words, the supplier might now have switched over to the 15% and send you the invoice with the 15%. Okay, I'm going to show you how we have sort of worked around that to enable you to use the 15% for that specific order. So I'm going to work with order number 25 just to demonstrate that to you. You will see that this job or this order was done with the 14% VAT. Okay, so there's my order amount, there's the VAT amount, and there's the total. Now, if I go to receive this specific order, all right, capture GRVs and RFCs, I've created a sheet for today's date already. You go and create the PCR goods received line details. So you choose your order, which will be number 25. All right, you'll see that automatically it's picking up that the order was done and created at 14%. Right, we'll just follow the procedure. So we have our order number there, our supplier, whether it's delivery or invoice. You enter your invoice number there. Now here where it has the VAT field, you can go to the magnifying glass, click on that. If you need to use the 15% that the supplier has now sent you the invoice. So you click on the 15%, say select. All right, and you will obviously then use the delivery doc total on their invoice that they have sent you, which in my case will be 322 for this specific order. All right, I'm going to click on OK to just create that entry. You follow procedure, so check in orders. I tag my items and select. So you will see that there is no real difference here, so you can still accept your order and check it in, even though they've moved over to the 15%. All right, is that unclear to anybody? I can say accept, and it has now actually GRV'd my items. You can still, if the order was done at 14% and you're receiving the goods at the 14%, nothing changes. That is a procedure as normal. Okay, does anybody have any questions regarding the GRVing of the parts? All right, please just put a question mark for me there if you do have a question so that I can see that you're trying to get a hold of me, or unmute yourself as well. You can also do that. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one. So that is our orders in connection with our GRV. So let me just show you any new orders will be done at 15%. So for instance, if we click on the new job parts, which we want to order, I'm going to use one of my demo jobs, number 6, okay, which you can see the 2 parts for. You choose your supplier, tag all your items, create order. I just want to show you what it looks like. You'll see the VAT 15% at the bottom here. Your VAT code will also be displayed here on your window. So just double check that it is using the correct VAT percentage. Okay, as of the end of April, you wouldn't need to go back and use the 14%, so everything will continue then only on the 15%. Okay, so here you would create your order as normal. You would say okay to save your order. All right, and it is then done at the 15% VAT code. All right, in regards to the invoicing, so let's move over to the accounting tab, click on invoices. Okay, so obviously you will have instances where you've created the quote, done the job card at the 14%, and like we said, you have the opportunity to invoice at the 14% up to the 21st of April. Okay, anything after that, hopefully you will be using the 15% as they have set out for us to use. So we did create the ability for you to change the VAT percentage and VAT code there. So let me just go and show you that quickly. If you have, I'm just going to click on job invoice there. I'm going to just see if I have any jobs here that we can use. So I'm going to select that job. All right, so you'll see the 15% VAT here because that is now my default already. If this job was done at 14% and you need to invoice it at 14%, simply click on the magnifying glass. It'll take you back to selecting the VAT code. You can then select the 14% and it will change your totals here as well with the correct amount for the VAT. Right, you can then invoice as normal. All right, and there's your new invoice with the 14%. If you're happy with invoicing it at the 15%, then it stays as is your default. Okay, is there any questions regarding the invoicing? Okay, I'll be moving on. Okay, the one thing that is a little bit different is creating your credit notes, aka reversing your invoice. So if you have created any invoice at the 14% and you are going to reverse this invoice to create a credit note, Veculim will reverse it at the VAT code that you used in order for the amounts to not change. Okay, it does not make sense to invoice something with 14% VAT, credit it with a 15% VAT, you'll have a difference there on that account, as I'm sure you understand. Okay, so as per normal, you would reverse the invoice. It stays at the 14% or 15%, whichever one you used. You will just enter your reason and then create your credit note. Okay, I'm going to move on from that. So the last section that we would like to cover is just your costing. Let me close this window and we're going to go over to the costing window. The internal costing works as normal. There isn't really any changes over there, but using your Excel costing is where the difference will come in. So I'm going to click on that so long while I'm talking to you. So what we've done and decided to do for you is as of, hold on for me 1 second, sorry. Andre, I can see that you have a question. Just unmute yourself there quickly, because it says that you've self-muted. There we go. Can you hear me? Hi, Andre.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, I was actually wanted a question before, but I couldn't. I was muted from your side.
That's fine. Before I get you, you're welcome to ask.
Okay, so an invoice was done, say a week before cutoff on when we're supposed to use 15%.
Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we now need to go back. So we're gonna have to reverse that invoice. It can't be just fixed where we change the VAT.
I'm not 100% sure I understand you. Okay, so let's say you've invoiced, taking into consideration my screen. So let's say that job was done at 14%, right? And now it's 2 weeks
and
later.
now we send.
Yeah.
Yeah, we send the invoice. Santam phones me now and says, "Oh, but you've only charged 14%. It's supposed to be 15%." Do we now reverse that whole invoice and re-invoice it, or is it a way? Is there a way of changing just the VAT? Like we can change the order number when we invoice.
Yes, not at the moment. So you will still have to go and reverse. Reverse the invoice, create a credit note with the 14%, and then re-invoice it. And at that stage, then
For the
use the
new one.
15%. Yes.
Okay. Right. Cool.
Okay. All right. So let's go back to the Excel costing. Okay, so we have our, as you know, we have our generic costing sheets. We have our Santam costing sheets, and then also a new one we've added, which is the Telesure costing. I'm not sure if anybody's using the Telesure, but we do have one client. In terms of the costing sheets that's exporting to Excel, all right, some of them have a set format and template, which is either for the 14% or the 15% VAT. We cannot change that. So what we've done is we've built all of the sheets into our data. So when you update, Jeffrey is going to set the default sheet for you to use at the 15% as of Tuesday. What you can then do, however, is you can go back to cost a job at the 14% if you need to. Keep in mind, this is only for all the other sheets, like for example, Santam and Telesures is not for the generic sheet. Okay, the generic sheet, if you export, it will be done according to your GRVs and everything that you've already done. So it doesn't really affect the generic sheet. So I just want to show you, if you need to go back to the 14%, if it is a set sheet, like for example, Santam, I'm just going to show you how that works. So first of all, the things that stay the same. So you choose your job. I'm just going to use that one for now. Everything else pulls through. Let's say you're using the Santam Heavy Vehicles costing sheet. You select your Excel model sheet here. Normally it puts the sheet that it wants to use at the bottom here. Now what we've done, again, it will default to the 15% as from Tuesday. What you can do, however, is if you click on the dots here, this little button, it will take you to your Veculim share data, where we would have built in the 14% sheet for you. Okay, so you will see here, it would say something like Santam Heavy Vehicle 14% VAT. Then you can go and select that sheet. I'm just going to select the 15% one for now, but you would obviously go and choose the 14%, and then it works as per normal. So you click on OK, and it pulls up everything after that. Okay, you say write to Excel, just as an example quickly. Sorry, it's just taking a moment. You're on my side. Okay. And it will then open for you on the Excel sheet itself. Just going to drag it over here so you can see. Okay, so if this is the Santam heavy vehicle costing sheet, you move out because this is a set sheet. We can't change the VAT on that. So you will see that they then have either the 14 or the 15%, depending on which sheet you have actually chosen to use. Okay. So is there any questions regarding the Excel costings?
There's nothing here. Okay, there's nothing. Okay, there's nothing from outside.
I've tried to unmute everybody. If you're still muted, please just unmute yourself so I can speak to you.
I'm good. I'm just wondering, I don't know if there are any VAT lines, where you'll have one part of 14% and the next, the part comes over 2 months, and then there's another VAT that they're charging out for 15. I don't know if they can change line items.
It's Dion, it's you talking, right? Sorry, I have quite a few attendees.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think what you would do, because obviously that would then be a partial delivery, so a partial receipt on your side, right? So you would receive, sorry?
Yeah, carry on. Sorry, I won't speak.
No, that's fine. You must just tell me if I'm understanding you correctly. So what you would do is partially receive the items that you did get, and then once the other item arrives and it is the 15%, then they will obviously just send that to you on a new invoice. Isn't that what they would normally do?
I presume so. And yeah, okay. and then charging out. There's one. I'm not too sure how it would work. There's one charge out that item that you had 14% as 14%, or do you charge it out as the 14% is 15% in a new month? I don't know.
That depends. I'm not exactly sure what you guys would use. If anybody wants to also help Dion there or suggest something, you're welcome. Dion, for me, if you had the part originally on the job card at 14%, then my suggestion would be to keep it at 14%, but that's absolutely your choice. The VAT is going to change on the invoice, so I'm not sure how you want to play that. Either then pass a saving and then add the part again with the 15% VAT on the invoice. So the part price.
Yeah, and then your invoice amount is going to be different than the parts amount. Yes.
Okay.
You understand, Jeremy?
Can I just jump in there?
Yes, of course, Jeff.
Okay, so our understanding is that your output VAT is obviously the 15%, and that would be after the 1st of April. Your input VAT would be, you would have to obviously, that wouldn't necessarily matter whether it's 14 or 15% in respect to your output VAT. So your output VAT would need to be at 15% if you're invoicing after the 1st of April, or more specifically after the 21st of April if there's an agreement at 15%. Your input VAT would be either 14 or 15, but that wouldn't necessarily affect the 15% output VAT though. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, you can receive, so when you're invoicing at 15%, you can receive parts at 14 or 15%, but the output VAT would be one at 15%.
Okay. That's how I understand it as well.
All right, okay, no problem.
Okay. You happy, Dion?
Yeah.
Okay, 100%. Anybody else want to ask anything?
No, we understand that.
Okay. Just looking here. Anton, I can't really hear you guys. I don't know if you want to unmute yourself. Andre, do you have any questions? Octavia?
Yes.
Hi, I can see you guys there as well. Do you guys have any questions or any scenarios that you want me to run through?
No, not at this stage, Jennifer. I think it's kind of clear for us on the side. Yeah, I think everything stays the same practically up until the end where you just charge you 15%. So for me,
Okay.
it's cool.
You're happy?
Yes.
Okay, 100%. Anybody else?
Just one other comment. Obviously, when you're exporting, if you've used a different VAT code, which we strongly recommend you do use, then obviously that VAT code, in the sense of exporting to pastel, will be used at 15. And so even if you haven't exported everything by the end of the 31st of March in terms of your GRV exports, then you'll have a mixture of VAT code 1 and VAT code 15, depending on whether it's whether you've received it at 14 or 15%. But because if you've used a different VAT code, which, as I suggest, we strongly suggest that you use, then when you import into pastel, then that ledger posting will be imported at the correct VAT amount according to the VAT code. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right, if everybody is happy, I am going to save this recording for us. So you're welcome to go back and take a look at this, or you're welcome to give me a phone if you are struggling with anything or you're unsure of how to handle the situation. You know that we're here for support. So please make use of us and give me a call if you struggle or you have any questions.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you guys so much for attending. We really appreciate it and good luck.
We're done.
I'm done. I just wanted to show you everything that, well, just sort of what we've changed for you guys and where you can, either make use of the 15 or the 14%, because it's a little bit different. I think we all remember the 14% since whenever. So.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the first 3 weeks or until this all settles, it will be a bit confusing, but I think we'll get over it. And then by the end of April, everything will be 15%, and we'll just carry on.
Yes. So by end of April, everything should be good.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yes, hopefully. Okay, everybody, thank you so much, and hope if I don't hear from you, have a lovely Easter weekend.
Yes, you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye.